The Starling Diaries, the private journal of Miss Clara Evangeline Whittemore, Belgrave Square, London, spring of 1907. For Emerald. By Eliza Tilde Vaughn. April 9th, 1907. Drip and drizzle all day, and Nurse Harling declared the weather unfit even for a duck. I told her quite plainly that I was not a duck, and insisted that I required a bit of air, though I rather think it was she who needed the walk. Her face has been pinched all week, and she has taken to sighing in corners when she believes I cannot hear. So out we went, I in my second best boots, which still pinch at the toes, and she with her scarf wrapped twice about her chin like a goose fearing the influenza. Harling made me promise not to speak to any strangers or feed any strays, which, I now realize, is precisely what I have done. We turned down the lane towards the Mews crossing, the one with the mossy underside and the little rustlings in the stones that always make me feel as though something unseen is watching. And that is when I saw her. At first I thought it a bit of velvet, or perhaps a child's dropped muff, curled there between two bricks. But it moved, it mewled. And then it turned its head. A kitten. The smallest I have ever seen, with fur all black and white, like a blot of ink spilled into cream. Her coat was damp from the rain, slicked down in places and puffed in others. One paw, her front right, was pure white, as though dipped in paint, and across her nose, a streak of dried mud like a soldier's stripe. I spoke to her the way one does to a frightened creature, or a babe, softly and without expectation. She looked up at me with such knowing eyes I nearly forgot to breathe. Harling gasped and exclaimed, "I must not touch it, that wild creatures carry all manner of disease," but I was already on my knees, scarf removed, coaxing her gently, as though she might vanish at the slightest sound. And she came to me. She came, right into my arms, as though we had known each other always. I have named her Dinah. I do not know why. It simply seemed correct. Harling refused to carry her, of course. I tucked Dinah beneath my shawl and kept her hidden all the way home. We slipped in through the tradesman's door, and I took the back stair to my chamber. She is now curled within the linen drawer, tail tucked like a question mark. I have fed her a bit of toast and the skin off the chicken from luncheon. She licked my fingers as if it were a royal banquet. I have told no one, not Mary, not Mother, and certainly not Aunt Millicent, who would surely faint dead away at the notion of animal fur brushing the curtains. I do not know what I have done, but I do know this: I love her already. See. April 10th, 1907. This morning Mary found her. I had gone down to the drawing room to fetch my copy of The Water Babies, and when I returned, Mary was in a commotion, nearly dropping the breakfast tray. Standing in the center of my room like a statue, fists clenched upon her apron, she stared at the linen drawer as if it had committed theft. Dinah chose that very moment to stir and emit the tiniest squeak. "Miss Clara Whittemore, what in heaven's name is that?" she cried, which of course prompted Dinah to squeak again, and I was left with no recourse but the truth. I omitted the part about the bridge. I told her I had found Dinah in the garden. I am not proud of the lie, but I do not regret it. Mary looked quite ready to cry. She begged me to get rid of Dinah at once, saying that if Mother or Aunt Millicent found out, there would be no saving either of us. She said she could lose her position. I told her I would take all the blame. She said that is not how the world works. And then she left. When I returned after luncheon, Dinah was gone. I searched the whole of the house. Pantry, boot room, the curtained alcove behind Father's armchair. I even checked the service hallway where Cook keeps the old vegetable sacks. No Dinah. I was certain they had taken her away. I did not cry. I refused to cry. I ran. The morning snow had begun to melt into slush across the square, and I caught glimpses of tiny paw prints between the stones. Through Belgrave Square, boots untied, no hat, people stared. I did not care. I searched every hedge, every brick, until my lungs burned. She was not there. The snow had not yet vanished entirely, but there were no more prints. I feared the worst. I went to the Mews crossing to look, though I had no idea what I might do if she were there. Call her? Stand beneath the mossy lip and beg the fog for forgiveness. I sat upon the steps and stared at the stone, long enough for my skirts to soak through. And then, just as I had given up and begun to walk home, there came a sound behind me, the gentlest trill, a scratch against brick. I turned, and there she was. I didn't call her name, I hardly dared. My knees nearly gave out, but there she was, curled between brickwork and a tree as though she had never moved. She was muddy again, her fur damp and streaked with melt, smudged at the ears, and looking utterly pleased with herself, as though I were the one who had run off. She followed me home, tail aloft like a banner. Mary would not look at me. She wiped her hands and fled when she saw us. But there was something in her face, not anger, not even fear, guilt. She had not taken Dinah far. And Dinah had found me again. That must mean something. It must. The back door slammed behind me as I darted into the kitchen, my boots squelching and my skirts clinging damply to my knees. Mary looked up from the basin with a gasp. "Miss Clara, you'll catch your death. What in heaven's name have you been doing?" she cried, hurrying over. She took one look at my flushed cheeks and sodden hem, and began peeling my gloves from my fingers, clucking under her breath. "No hat, soaked to the bone, and your boots not laced. Lord above." She whisked me upstairs and found dry stockings and a flannel dressing gown, her muttering sharp but tender. "If Nurse Harling sets eyes on you like this, she'll say it were me let you run off into the Thames." Soon I was settled by the parlour fire, a blanket around my shoulders, steam rising from my stockings. Mary tended the coals with one hand and fussed with the other, her apron already damp. Then, soft paw steps. Dinah crept in from the corridor, ears low, tail trailing like a whisper. "Oh, not you as well," Mary sighed. "Look at you, as wet as a sponge and proud of it." She scooped Dinah up, wrapped her in a clean towel, and wiped each paw with a gentle firmness I'd never seen her use before. Dinah, astonishingly, purred. Once both of us were dry and warm. Mary sat beside me with a small huff, smoothing her apron across her knees. Biting her lips, Mary said, "Well, I suppose I'm in it now too." We sat on the rug, Dinah curled between us, both of us laughing until we cried. "I have always liked cats," she said at last. "We are conspirators now, but I fear we cannot go on hiding Dinah. It is only a matter of time before she is discovered again, and I do not know how long we can keep this secret. Dinah sleeps now, nestled beneath my counterpane. But I swear to the stars above and to Artie's good name, I shall not give her up. Come what may, I shall not lose her again. I must speak to father. Tomorrow. See." April 11th, 1907. The sky made a poor attempt at clearing. London gleamed as though recently scrubbed, puddles catching the pale light like glass. It is done. And I am still trembling. I caught father as he stepped in from his morning constitutional. Overcoat still buttoned, boots slightly muddied, a newspaper tucked beneath his elbow. He looked surprised to see me in the vestibule, gloved and ready. "Shall we walk, Papa?" I asked, before I could lose my nerve. We strolled along the lane toward the bridge, both of us bundled in scarves and gloves against the bite of the morning air. He asked about my lessons. I gave answers I do not remember. My heart beat louder than my voice. At last I stopped. I have something to confess, as though I had committed murder. His eyebrow rose. I told him everything. About the bridge, about smuggling Dinah in, about Mary's panic, the secret meals, the return of the kitten, and how I could not, would not, let her go again. He said nothing. Then, just as we reached the canal wall, he sighed and turned toward the water. "Your mother is already in a state over the wallpaper in the dining room," he muttered. "This may be the end of my piece." I said nothing. Then a sound, a mew, a rustle. And from behind a crate, Dinah. She had followed us. Before I could react, she bolted into the road, and a cart was coming fast. I screamed. Father moved, like a soldier. He darted forward across the muddy road, lifted her up in one arm, and turned just before the wheel passed where she had been. He stood there, breathless, Dinah in arms. She looked up at him with enormous eyes. He looked down at her, and then at me, and then he laughed. A full, proper laugh, the kind I had not heard since before grandfather died. "All right," he said, brushing a leaf from Dinah's back. "But she is your responsibility." I nodded. I could not speak. He said he would speak to Mother but asked for time. "Give me a little time, Starling," he said, with a twinkle I shall never forget. "Dinah is asleep in the linen drawer now. Mary brought her a bit of fowl with no one asking. I hope that Father is successful. See." April 12th, 1907. It is done. Mother knows. It happened just past 7, early enough that most of the house was still asleep. I had gone to fetch my hair ribbons from the washstand drawer, and Dinah, ever opportunistic and apparently fond of drama, chose that very moment to leap from beneath the bench and into my chamber pot. The sound was calamitous, a splash, a hiss, a crack of porcelain, then silence so sudden I could feel it in my teeth, then me shrieking, then Mary, bursting in like a gale, only to stop cold at the sight of Dinah sitting regally beside the upturned pot, her white paw dripping and trailing a ribbon of something most unfortunate across the carpet. She did not scold me. She turned pale. "They will have heard that," Mary said, glancing nervously toward the landing. And they had. Footsteps shuffled on the landing, bare feet on tile, robes rustling. No one had yet dressed. Moments later, Mother stood in my doorway, lips pressed into a single line. She did not speak at first, merely surveyed the untidiness, the pot, the paw prints, myself on my knees with a rag and a face full of panic. Then, "What is that?" There was no pretending. I told her everything. The bridge, the finding, the name, the promises. She said, "Absolutely not." Aunt Millicent appeared behind her like a phantom, crossing herself as though Dinah were a curse laid upon the household. She began muttering about fleas and infestations, and the collapse of moral standards. I tried not to cry, but when Father entered, I did. I told him the whole story again, with Mary standing behind me, wringing her apron and refusing to meet anyone's gaze. I told him Dinah had chosen me, and that I had sworn by Artie to care for her. Father said nothing. Then he looked at Mother, who looked at Millicent, who was midway through a sentence about creature hair and bronchial issues. And then he said, "There will be no peace in this house if we take her away." Mother snapped something about encouraging the child, but Father turned to me, knelt down and asked softly, "Where is she now?" I showed him. She had curled herself into the foot of my dressing gown and was licking the wet from her paw. When she looked up at him, she blinked once and sneezed. Then, most astonishingly, she stood, trotted up to him, and placed that damp white paw upon his shoe. He blinked, then smiled. He told Mother that if Dinah were to remain, it must be in my room only. No parlors, no dining room, no exceptions. I would be solely responsible. And I must promise to clean every accident, even if it befell the folds of my favorite gown. I agreed. With all my heart I agreed. Mother departed in a storm of handkerchiefs. Millicent excused herself with great ceremony and retreated to her sitting room, no doubt to compose a letter or fortify her nerves with a splash of sherry. Mary collapsed into the hall chair and declared she might faint. And Dinah? Dinah returned to sleep, as though none of it had happened. Later, as Father helped me settle her basket by the hearth, he said quietly, "Let us allow your mother to believe she was persuaded." And he winked. I have never loved him more. I fed Dinah a bit of cold fowl from the supper tray and whispered into her ear that she was home now. Truly home. I believe she already knew. See. April 13th, 1907. It rained again today, but I did not mind. Dinah and I remained indoors. I placed a basket by the hearth and lined it with one of my old underskirts. She claimed it at once. When the fire is warm, she stretches as long as a shepherd's crook, then she curls so tightly she vanishes into herself. Her purr is gentler now, contented. Like a kettle just before it boils. I have observed something about her eyes. They are never the same shade twice. Yesterday they seemed golden, today green. I do not know if it is the light or something else, but they watch more than they blink. She has not scratched a single thing, not even the curtain fringe. Father peered in on us after his afternoon tea. He did not speak, only nodded and left a saucer of cream by the door. He believes I did not see, but I did. Mother has not spoken to me since yesterday. She passes me as though I am wallpaper, her shawl wrapped tightly about her despite the hearth fire. I cannot tell whether she is angry at Father, at me, or at the very idea of something wild residing so near to her embroidered pillows. Mary is trying very hard not to smile when she sees Dinah. I think she is relieved that the storm has passed. She even brought me a scrap of fish from the kitchen and said nothing when Dinah climbed into my lap during reading hour. Aunt Millicent has retreated to taking her tea in the sunroom and has written 2 letters, windows cracked despite the chill, and she sips her tea as though daring the cold to interrupt her. I think she is punishing the air. As for myself, I have been drawing. I copied the mushrooms from Artie's old pocketbook and pressed 2 of the small white ones between waxed paper. I have made sketches of Dinah in 5 sleeping positions and attempted one of her mid-stretch, though her tail kept changing direction. I believe she knew. She knows everything. I believe she may be my dearest friend. Is that silly? I do not care. I must write to Artie and tell him everything. He'll never believe what Dinah did, or how Father winked. I have begun a new page at the back of this journal, entitled Things Worth Keeping. Today I added, the smell of a kitten's fur in morning light, the sound of paw steps on old wood, the weight of someone trusting you enough to stay. That is all. See.